Hi everyone, it's Ali. Thanks for joining me again and I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to start this card by grabbing some watercolour card there. It's quite a thick watercolour card and a piece of acetate there, and grabbing my Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to use Kraft Pistachio, Salty Ocean and Twisted Citron there. And I'm just putting that, smudging that onto the acetate, and I'm going to spray it just with some plain water in my spritzer. And I'm just going to get a piece of scrap paper so I don't get ink all over my mat there, and then just flip it upside down onto the watercolour paper and just sort of rub it around with my finger a little bit to try and get that ink to move, to cover all that paper. And sometimes I just use my acetate there to move the ink on the paper as well. There's a little bit too much sitting on there, so I just removed a little bit with the baby wipe there. And now I'm going to heat set it with my heat tool, and then again just spraying a little bit more water on that same acetate just with the leftover ink there, and just pressing that down onto the watercolour paper just to get cover the whole piece of watercolour paper with ink. And I just decided I wanted a little bit more Twisted Citron in there, so just put a little bit more of that on the acetate and then just smooch that onto the paper as well and rub it round. There's not really any rhyme or reason to it. It's a fairly random technique, which is why I quite like it, because I'm usually very structured and, you know, things have to be done a certain way. But I like this technique because you can just put the ink on and move it around and see how it turns out, and then add more colour if you need to. So I'm just adding a little bit more Salty Ocean there, a little bit more blue in it, and filling in any gaps of white that I see on the paper. And then again, heat setting that with my heat tool to dry it off in between. And then last of all, just using the rest of the ink that's on the acetate and pressing down to just get some little more splotches of colour there. And then once I'd used up all the ink, I heat dried it again, and then I just decided it was a little bit too splotchy, so I just wanted the colours to merge a little bit more, and just sprayed it with my water sprayer once again, and just so that it was a little bit more muted between the colours there, and then just heat set it again. And then I was happy with that piece, so now I'm going to get my dies, and this is a Sizzix set of dies. They're Thinlits, and they're a Tim Holtz set called Wildflowers, and they're a really nice set of dies actually. They look good cut in all sorts of different colours. I have done them in autumn sort of colours and they look great, and I'm just trying to fit as many on this sheet as I can so I don't waste too much of that paper. And then I'm just running that through my Big Shot and taking those die cuts out there. They're quite detailed, so it is a little bit fiddly, but they cut really well and they're not difficult to get out. And now I've got a piece of Kraft base card there and a stencil from Simon Says Stamp called Circular Lace, and some Hero Arts pigment ink, some white pigment in there, and I'm just going to put that onto that base card there using my sponge and my Ranger tool. And I just sort of move that around in circles generally, and sometimes I twist the tool a little bit just to work the ink into that stencil. And then I've just got some gesso and I'm flicking that on with a paintbrush. I've mixed it with a little bit of water and I'm flicking it on just to get some white splashes of paint. And I decided that I wanted the pigment ink to be a little bit darker through that stencil, so I just replaced it back on there, lined it up, and just put a little bit more pigment ink on the top there just to make the white the same intensity as the splashes. Okay, so now it's time to grab my base card, just a plain white base card there, and I need to trim that background piece down a little bit, which I've done there. And now I'm going to just time a couple of those wildflowers together with a bit of twine, and it's got a little bow. I've put a little bow on the front there as well, so I'm just attaching those together with the twine and trimming off the excess there. And I also wanted some twine wrapped around my Kraft piece of card, so I'm just going to put some double-sided tape on the back just so that it keeps it tight once I've wrapped it around that Kraft piece. And I think I wrapped it around about 3 times around that piece of Kraft card, just with the same twine. And then I'm going to attach my flowers on, and I just used a bit of double-sided tape on the back of those flowers just to secure them on in place there. And then I just want to attach that piece on to the front of my card. Oh, and before I did that, I wanted to just secure some of the flowers down a little bit better. I wanted some of them sticking up a little bit to give it a bit of dimension, so I just put a little bits of glue here and there, not all over the back of those flowers, just so that some of them were lifting off the front of the card just slightly as well. And then just to secure that on the front of my card, I'm just going to use some roller glue, and I'm going to put the glue on the base card rather than flip that piece over and get glue everywhere and, you know, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to use my roller glue on the front of that card, like so, and just line it up by eye. I just usually press it down lightly and then move it if I need to slightly before I press it quite firmly down permanently. And now I want a sentiment, and I've grabbed my favourite things essential sentiments. It's Hello Beautiful, and I really like this sentiment set. I find I reach for it quite a lot, and I'm using my powder tool there just to take any static off the paper, and my Versamark ink just to stamp that in Versamark ink, and then I'm going to put white embossing powder on that and heat set it. Just heat setting that, and make sure it's dry before you touch it, and then just trim it out with my scalpel and ruler. And then I just decided that it needed, because it was going to be craft on craft, it needed a little bit of white behind it. So I just cut a piece of white card there in a little strip and angled the corner the same. And now I'm just going to stick those pieces together. It just makes the sentiment stand out a little bit more. And trim off the edge and then attach that again using my roller glue to the front of the card. So that is the card for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for visiting my channel, and I will see you again next time.